everyone, welcome to Life After J-Dubs. I'm here tonight with the beautiful Moana, and I'm excited to see her after that lovely intro. There she is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
How are you?
Job. I'm good. I'm good. Nice and cozy. Thank you.
Cool. Well, it's nice to see you today. I had my interview with you, a few weeks ago. So now we've flipped the tables, and I'm going to ask you some questions.
I know.
Hear all about your life.
Thanks.
So I guess, most of us would like to know what's your backstory, how you're associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Cool. So I was 8 years old when my mum decided she was looking for something. But prior to that, my dad actually put me into Sunday school. Maybe it was a Baptist church. So I do remember going to church, colouring in, drinking juice and a bicky.
The fun one.
Yeah, it was actually quite fun. I've got good memories of that. And then when I was 8, someone had actually knocked at our door, and I went and answered it, and I said that my parents weren't available to some extent like that they left. And then my mum sort of asked me questions about it, and she was like, go and wave them down, like get them, I need to talk to them. And I was like, okay. And then I tried to find them. I ran up the driveway, looked outside the gate, and I couldn't find them. So now I know they would have went next door, but I thought they'd so that's it. And then so like about a week later, mum went to a girlfriend's house, and then she was actually in the middle of a study. So that's how it all started for us. So for me, I was the oldest out of all of my family, and I've got 3 siblings under me. There's 8-year gap between me and the next one. And so I came into it with mum and dad being Bible studies. Mm-hmm. So I was one of those people.
So was I.
Yeah. So I was like the child that sort of went through the up and downs of 1 minute they're studying, then they're not, and then they go to the meetings, and then they're not. And yeah, so I was very dysfunctional, I guess. Yeah. Very up and down. Yeah. Them soul searching, trying to find happiness or whatever they were looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like, do you know what it was that sort of piqued your mum's interest, that she wanted you to chase after them?
Yeah, I guess for like now that I'm older, like I'm 41 now, and I've been on a journey for about 5 years on my own healing journey. I sort of feel like there's a lot of generational trauma, and especially culturally, and I come from a Māori culture background, and a lot of domestic violence, and a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of emotional abuse. So yeah, both my parents have experienced that on both sides, and I guess they were just looking for a better life, a better opportunity. Obviously had a lot of fear around the future because they had children of their own, or they were starting to create their family, and they're like, oh, what is the future? What does the future hold for our children? And they just wanted a better life, really, and just answers.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. I guess that's, how most of the studies have started. And also, like, you brought up, how you're Māori, and like that there's a whole sort of a different culture to, white New Zealand, I guess. Did you experience like, going to the marae and like doing things like that as well, and like have to sort of juggle with what the witnesses were teaching around Māori culture?
So from a really young age, like all of my siblings were all called Māori names, so we all pretty much, and we were told not to learn Māori. So when we went to school, went to high school, no Māori culture. Like we just had to learn English. And which I understand, this whole generational stuff as well, because my grandfather got beaten for going to school and speaking Māori, and then he would get beaten when he came home speaking English. So he had decided for his children that they only had to learn English and that you would never get a job learning Māori. And so my dad put that on to me, and I guess it was the same with my mum. I was just like, it's not worth it. Don't worry about your culture. You just go and learn English. And then coming into a JW religion, where obviously there's only one God, not many gods within our culture of Māori. So we weren't allowed to learn Māori at all. My nana actually passed away, and it just all felt scary for me. I remember going, I would have been about 11, and I vaguely remember going a little bit to the marae, but Mum was it was very scary. Like that, I only knew scarcity around my culture. Going to a marae was sort of satanic, sort of like God, demons, all that sort of stuff. So I found a very scary experience, and I actually still feel that way today when it comes to a tangi or a funeral. I have this trauma come up in me, like scarcity of going.
That makes sense.
And I've actually only just realized that because someone dear to me passed away, and they were having a tangi at the marae, tangi funeral, same thing, and I actually just get to go.
Oh wow, yeah. So it's sort of like something that it's been ingrained in you from when you were younger, and now you sort of have to think about or deal with it and unpick it.
And I hope that I can overcome that. But that was something that came through strongly for me about a month ago, and I was like, I can't go.
Because I've just sort of been looking into the different cultural aspects of being a witness, and like how being a witness, your culture becomes 1950s corporate America. And a lot of the indigenous cultures and a lot of the lands that witnesses go to, you can't connect with your culture, which is really unfortunate.
Really sad. And I think that's why so much of us feel very disconnected, because it's in our lineage, it's in our blood. Our culture is very much in there, but we don't know because we've been so disconnected from it that we're walking around like zombies. Well, I feel like we are, looking for that sense of purpose, that sense of belonging, that need to, well, who am I? But we've been stripped of it. They've never allowed us to know who we really are until you decide to go on a healing journey and then go, I really want to go home, which when I say home, I mean going back on a in your culture.
And then sort of speaking about healing journeys, so you yourself do life coaching.
So I lost my way growing up in the religion. Like I became quite I got into so much trouble as a teenager, just didn't know, became quite numb. I actually remember my body just going completely numb as a teenager, and just not really knowing who I am and what I want, being so confused about life, not being happy in the religion, but not knowing why, blaming myself a lot because why can't I do what everyone else is doing in the religion? Like, why am I so miserable? And why am I rebelling? I didn't even know why I was doing all of that. And so I was jumping out windows, and I was taking off to parties, and I was drinking excessively, and I was having sex with
a lot
with a lot of men, well, boys at that stage, and I just didn't care. Like I'd gone so numb in my body that I actually just didn't care anymore.
It was almost like you're trying to make yourself feel something, I guess.
And then I realized that I was searching for acceptance, for validation of love. I just wanted someone to love me and just accept me for the person that I am. But I was forced into being something that I wasn't.
It really takes a
So
toll
I've done
on us.
all the and I've done all the celebrating of Christmas and birthdays. Like I had all that, and I actually feel like that was a pretty cool life. Like I really remember my parents. Well, from my memory, I thought that we were really happy. And then all of a sudden, all of that was ripped away and taken from me. And that's where I kind of went into this, like, what have I done? Like I went into this victimhood blame game of like, what have I done? Like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I being punished? And no one really gave me an explanation or said, oh, babe, it's actually not you. We're just on this new journey. It was just silence. Like I was, there was just nothing. Yeah. And
that's really sad. It is really hard sad as well when you have that, like that little taste of, I guess, being a normal person in the world, and then it's taken away from you, and you're just like, what happened?
And then so I decided at 16 years old, I told my mum I was leaving, and she said, I think she got to a point where she was just like, well, go then. I guess, and, me being a mother now, I guess I understand her frustration and just not knowing what to do. So she let me go. And I went and moved out and just partied hard. Like I did everything. It was like, I was like this animal just released from a cage. And I just did everything. Apart from drugs, actually. That was probably one thing I actually didn't really want to touch. So everything else, like sex, drinking, partying, that was all me, until I was about 19, and then I got pregnant, and then I was like, oh crap, now what am I going to do? And then I told my parents, and then my parents said that I could come home on the condition that I go back to the religion.
Oh yeah, as they do.
And adding up my budget at the time, I didn't really have any money. I felt like for me to give my daughter, well, I didn't know it was my daughter, but in order to give my baby a good life, it was best that I moved home. So I moved home for her, for my baby. And went back, did what I was told to do, but very double standard. So I had to go because that was the arrangement that we'd made, but my parents sort of weren't, or kind of were, and that was my journey at home. It was just like, so are we in, are we out, or very, very confusing times.
Yes,
but I did give it my best shot. Like I gave it everything, and tried to do the right thing for my daughter, because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about my child, and and I had all this fear come up around, with Armageddon and the new system, and I was like, I was quite happy to risk my life in the world and be done with the religion, but I had a child now, so totally different scenario. So I was scared for her.
So did you sort of have? Sorry.
No, you go.
So I was just going to say, did you sort of still believe, I guess, and just like when you left, you were like, I just can't do it, and then still kind of held on to some of the beliefs? Yeah,
I fully believed in it. Like it was ingrained in me from an 8-year-old. So even though I was out in the world, I was quite numb, but I was very aware. And still had that fear, but I was just in the moment. Back then, I was like, I didn't care about myself until I became pregnant, and then it was like, whoa, I've got a responsibility now. This isn't just about me. This is about her and what's best for her future. So I ended up going really hard out into the religion. I went to the meetings. I actually went flatting and met my best friend, and we both went flatting. And then I just sort of was up and down with depression and anxiety at the time, and wanted to be in it, but then didn't want to be in it. And I went through a bit of a struggle, and I actually fornicated, is what they would call it, but with my daughter's dad. So we had a bit of a thing, and I felt so much guilt that I went to the elders and told them all about it, and I got stood down. I can't remember what they call it.
Your privileges removed?
Yeah, like, is it silent? It was all done with silence anyway, so no one really knew except for me and them. Yeah.
I was like, wait, there's one word for this.
Yeah, because it's been so long. I haven't been in for ages, but so they silently reproved me. But my friend got married, and she was my best friend, and I felt so humiliated because I couldn't be her bridesmaid.
Oh no!
And everyone would have known.
Yeah.
That I was on silent reproval, because they'll be like, well, why aren't she one of her bridesmaids? Because everyone knew we were best friends, and I never got the privilege to stand up there beside her in the hall. I just had to sit in the back, and I got to sign her. I was allowed to sign her registry thing.
Wow.
But I was so humiliated that day.
Yeah, that would be so awkward.
Yeah. Because I could feel it in my body. I just felt so much shame and guilt that I cried all the way home. And then it just spiraled from there, and I ended up continuing to fornicate with my daughter's dad, to the point where I couldn't control it, and then I just left. Didn't really give an explanation, and I just left and didn't come back. And that's sort of how it all started. And then I actually met my husband.
Yeah.
And we formed a relationship, and we ended up moving in together. And this is where, my parents sort of jumped in, and my mum was like, you need to get married ASAP, in a garden in the backyard or something, or you need to leave him or go to the elders and tell them what's happening.
And at that point, you weren't going to meetings?
No. But I was baptized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got baptized before I met my husband, while I was still in it. And so they said, you have to say something. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to get married in a backyard, because that's not what I want. I'm not going to leave this man, because I actually think he's really cool. Like, he's definitely not how the world was described. He actually really has my back. So I said, okay, I'm going to have to go to the elders. So I did what my mum wanted me to do, and I went and arranged a meeting with the elders, and I sat in the hall with 2 elders and told them and confessed that I was living with a man, and that and they asked me if I wanted to be a Jehovah's Witness, and I said no. I said no, I don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness. So from what I gather, that's why I got Disfellowship, because I chose not to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses anymore.
It's almost like you disassociated, but they were like, no, we're going to Disfellowship you, Yeah.
And in hindsight, I can't go back. I wish I didn't need to do that, but I felt like I had to. And even my husband said, I wish I never let you do that. Like, I didn't even know what you were doing. But hey, it was done. I've experienced it now. And that was the beginning of my shunning. And my depression came in very strong. And a lot of anxiety, a lot of like, am I doing the right thing? And going through the whole experience of being shunned was awful. You know, when you're in it and you're not shunned and you're not disfellowshipped, you don't really know. But when you're experiencing it for the first time, it was horrible.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, one of the worst experiences of my life, and it's been a battle.
Not good.
It's like the ocean. It's just up and down. Some days are good and some days are not. Sometimes it's a shitstorm and sometimes it's calm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really really interesting. I just hit rock bottom. Couldn't find a way out. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't know who to talk to because I was always taught that we're very private people. You know, my parents are very private. They don't like to discuss, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
So I always was really fearful about getting help. I didn't know who to trust outside in the world. I didn't know who would listen because, you know, you'd probably agree with me, Michelle, like you can talk to people outside of the religion and they're sympathetic. They're like, I'm so sorry, but they don't really understand the depths of the abuse. Like,
and like just how pervasive it is. Like, it's not just like it's been a one moment where something happened. It's something that happened throughout your life, and then the after effects ripple on continually.
Yeah. And even we, like, well, for me, I didn't even know the extent of the abuse because I always thought, oh, it's not that bad, you know, like, because my parents did have they didn't have a nice upbringing, and yes, mine's not like theirs, but I always used to think, oh, it's actually not that bad. Like, I've always sugar-coated my upbringing. I've been like, oh, it's not that bad. And it's not until you actually go and get some sort of support or, you know, and that's where I fell into life coaching.
Yeah.
Only because I had a bad experience with a school counsellor.
Yeah.
That at that stage I was like, I'll never talk to a counsellor again.
Wow.
But now I'm more open. But back then I was just like, she never heard me, so I'll never ever go down that track. So I fell into life coaching, and I met a beautiful woman who was very similar. She had very similar characteristics to me. Like, we just hit it off really well. She understood me, and when I started opening up to her about my story, for the first time she had said to me, "This is not okay. This is not okay." And then
that would have felt amazing to have someone get it and validate the feelings. Yeah,
like she really listened and she heard me, and actually said, "Moana, this is not okay." And I was like, and for her to tell me that was hard to process, because I was like, oh, you know, like I was like, I don't know. Wow.
It's like you suddenly pause, you freeze, you're like, oh my goodness.
And then you're like, oh wow, no, this isn't okay. This is actually a form of abuse, and and then you start to unravel lots of things, and then you get so much more clarity around, you know, what happened, and then you're like, holy shit. Wow, I really do need help.
It wasn't just a bad dream.
No. And it was just, it just makes so much sense. And then being able to overcome the fear of, you know, researching, like that was a big thing for me, as I was so scared to research outside of the JW .org. So I've only just started researching a year ago, and I'm 41 now, and I left when I was 21. So
it's a good 20 years.
And it's only been in the last year that I've decided to jump into these sort of, you know, this page or this group, where I've been able to read other people's stories and be like, holy crap, they're my story. They're my people.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah, like I'm reading my same story.
Yeah. And even like the language, the cult language that we had, like it's just so much easier to explain things to people who grew up with it as well. And you don't have to like explain, okay, well, what I mean by when I say the truth, especially when you're fresh out. You're like, the what? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it
exactly.
is amazing, like these groups, and especially the Life After J-Dubs one. It just helps so much.
Yeah, and that was the
Yeah.
biggest thing for me because like I was still so scared about Armageddon and like not making it into paradise. And then I've got children of my own. I had 3 daughters that I was really scared for, and and my parents would drop little hints every now and then to say, you really need to come back. Telling me all the stuff you're not going to make it. You need to come back to us. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. So that's why I started researching a year ago. I was like, this is a chance for me to make my own decision, to actually do this research and actually find for myself, like, is this actually the truth? Moana, you need to go and figure that out for yourself rather than being told what to do, which is what I've experienced my whole life, is like, you have to do this. This time it was about like, actually, I'm going to go and do the research and find out for myself.
And so after doing that, so it's been a year of researching and finding out, how do you feel now about it? Like, what
really,
have you come to?
Yeah, like really, really good. Like it took a while. I actually became very, very bitter when I first started to do the research, and people gave me a lot of resources like to look into. And it didn't actually take much for me. Like I didn't need to do a lot. And but I became very, very bitter and quite angry for a few months just to process that, and I just allowed that to come through my training that I've done with life coaching. I felt really lied to because I actually thought, oh, maybe this is the truth, and then I felt very manipulated and very lied to, so I had to go through that process, that shitstorm, and which was really and then I sort of met you, and then I met Shane and just started to build up my community where I didn't feel alone anymore, that I had people that I can talk to,
Had your back.
had your back, feel understood,
Yeah.
and and then just started to grow my power back, like just started to like, actually now it's time to rediscover who I am. So I decided to actually come up with this awesome idea. So last year I became a life coach in April, after being on a 5-year journey of my own, and just fell into this by an accident. Like this wasn't really my plan. And I just started coaching women in particular about empowering them, helping them to fall in love with themselves, because that's something that I needed to do, and all about embodiment practices and learning tools like being with nature, Mother Earth.
You did do like this amazing photo that you have of you unbaptizing yourself, and I love it. I love that concept.
So I was actually in the middle of doing a film, like a really short 3-minute film with an amazing videographer based here in Taranaki. And we went to the ocean, and he said, I want to take you to an ocean that no one's been to. And I was like, okay, I'll find one. So I rang my best friend and I was like, where do I go? And she wanted me to go to this beach. She said, you'll really love it. And when I turned up to this beach, it was secluded. There was nobody on this beach. It was just me and the videographer. And I was like, holy crap, this is meant to be. So I said to him, I was like, you have no idea what I'm about to do, but I'm going to explain to you, and you just do what you do with your camera, and I'm going to go and get unbaptized. So I'm going to go into the water. And I created a ceremony for myself, and I thought about this. I put a lot of thought into it, and I wanted to go into that ocean, into the Moana, which is a part of my name. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to bring in my tupuna, my ancestors, my loved ones that had passed before me. You know, my grandparents, who I absolutely adored growing up. I wanted to bring them into this space. And that's something that we never could do, being brought up in this religion. But I was like, no, I want to do this for me. I want to be surrounded by my ancestors. So
yes,
I did that in the ocean, and I stood there in the ocean, and I was like, I saw my nana and my granddad, and just all these tears just flooded out of my eyes. And I just knew in that moment that I was no longer alone.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm going to release all that no longer serves me in this moment, let go of my past and start afresh. And I dipped my head under the water. I went completely under, and I came out, and that was my rebirth, my awakening, my unbaptism. And it was the most amazing experience of my life. I felt like everything had been lifted off my shoulders.
It sounds beautiful and like amazing for you.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what happened in that moment, Michelle, is something happened within my body where I just had this idea, or this thing that just popped up, like this creativity within me. My intuition was speaking to me in this moment, and it says, you need to go home. You need to go on a hikoi, or a walk back home. And I was like, what does that mean? And I was like, what, home back to my house? Or and then I was like, oh my God, I know what this is about. I have been so disconnected from myself as a woman and my sense of belonging to my culture. And so many of us are doing this now as we're on this healing journey, and then all of a sudden we're like, we just want to go home. We want to make a connection to where we come from, and we go back to our culture.
Yeah.
So I actually went on a journey back to Mahia Peninsula. So I did quite a bit of research, because I wanted to know, firstly, where my dad come from, because I was very, very close with my dad. So I actually did a lot of research about my whakapapa, my iwi. I was like, okay. And I ended up finding out that I came from Rongo Mai Wahine.
Oh, yeah.
Which is from Mahia Peninsula.
Nice. That's a beautiful place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And she is a warrior. She is a warrior queen. And she was the woman of Mahia. She was the queen of Mahia back then.
That's awesome. That's so awesome to find out and to connect to.
Yeah. So then I was like, oh, I knew it. I'm like, of course. Of course I come from her.
Even like going back to your comment about your intuition, like feeling that within yourself that you needed to go home and to take this journey. Even as a witness, like that is one of the things that we're told constantly not to do, is to trust ourselves or what we feel inside. So you doing that is just such a big, beautiful, like, step towards that journey. Like, it's just listening to yourself. It's perfect. It's beautiful. And to get where you are now through all of that.
Yeah, it took a long time, and it's still a fight. It's definitely still a fight. Getting out of our head and into our intuition is so important, but it's not an easy process, but definitely find that grounding is so important. Things that don't cost anything, things that we take for granted, like, the Moana. I've got a beautiful mountain 5 minutes from me, and just pulling from that. Going to the river, is so important for my growth, being connected with nature, because being still,
beautiful.
Being present, those are the things that have taken me a long time, because I was very much in my head, over-processing, overthinking everything, especially around judgment and rejection.
Yes.
All of us will connect with. But when I go and be with nature, that's where I do most of my grounding, so I can get back in touch with my intuition and remind myself of who I am as a woman. And we both experience the same, Michelle, like I've gone on a journey into why do women feel so disconnected? And we often see this, through the patriarchy, through, our upbringing, through religion. Why are we so disconnected? And probably the biggest thing for me was that submission, like being submissive to a man.
Sorry, I'm back.
Yeah. So I just rattled on. But I was talking about, that disconnect that we have as women. And, the biggest thing for me, and I know that you agree with this, is just having to be submissive to a man never really with me. I was always no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm my own person. I'm a very independent woman, and I have just as much to say.
Exactly, and it's valid.
Yes, and very outspoken. And I think what got me as a child is, the periods. I thought that was a punishment. I thought that that's what God, periods were a punishment for women, because what happened in the Garden of Eden with Eve. So I grew up really having such a negative feeling about my body, about periods, about I just thought I was just a worthless person. Like, women are worthless for a very long time, because I truly believe that women shouldn't have a say because of what happened then. And it's not until you go on a journey to actually do the research and find out more about Adam and Eve and that story, and it has nothing to do with what it says in the Bible.
No.
And that the period, our menstrual cycle, is very, very powerful. And we have a strong connection to Mother Earth and through our cycles, because our cycles are a mirror to Mother Nature within the seasons. We have 4 seasons with Mother Earth. We have 4 seasons within our menstrual cycle. Which I've really discovered and started to learn about. There's 4 sections to our cycle every month, and it's exactly the same as the seasons of Mother Earth. And we never learned that. When I learned that, I was like, what? Why we're
not allowed to learn anything about anything like that.
Yeah, and when you learn the power of your menstrual cycle and our changes in our hormones, and we class it as, like, in Māori they call it te awa, atua, or atua te awa, which is like the divine river. So in our culture, our menstrual cycle is very, very sacred, and women have a lot of power within their menstrual cycle. And if anyone wants to know more about that or learn about the menstrual cycle, I'm quite happy to do a free program to learn about that, because it's really, really
amazing.
Yeah, and that was how I started to fall in love with myself deeper, because I was like, holy crap, like, I am a powerful woman, because this is science. This isn't just made up. Like, this has actually become quite scientific once you start to learn. And when it's actually more, people are talking about it more now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
about self-pleasure,
Yeah.
because it's not just about getting off or having an orgasm. Like, pleasure is much more deeper than that. It's a deeper understanding of your body and how powerful it really is.
Wait, so you're telling me that a woman's purpose is not to just lie there and please a man?
Absolutely not. No,
Oh,
no.
who'd have thought?
No. And what I teach a lot of women now is like, yeah, a man is just a beautiful bonus, but you actually don't need a man to pleasure yourself. You can do that all on your own, and probably even better, because
Yeah.
self-awareness is so important for our bodies. And like all of us, we've had so much shame around self-pleasure or masturbation. I can't stand that word, to be honest. I love self-pleasure, but
Yeah.
and I used to do that. Like, I used to masturbate, and then I'd read about it or get told in my studies that that was a big no-no, and I used to have so
Yeah.
much guilt. And I was like, but it feels so good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I started going on a journey of learning about self-pleasure, and that it's actually not, it's not shameful, it's not
No.
dirty, it's not disgusting, and it's not something that you just have to share with someone else. You can actually pleasure yourself and get to know your body and understand what feels right for you. And and I love self-pleasure, not just for an orgasmic experience, but just getting to know me and
Yeah.
who I am. Yeah, and understanding my body. Yeah,
That's
yeah. And when
awesome.
you understand your body and what feels really nice and what feels good, then you're able to share that with someone special.
Mm.
And we learn that this is our temple, and we don't just let anybody in there. It's very sacred, and you have to be pretty amazing to have that
Exactly.
experience with us wahine toa.
Agreed.
And you'll learn this, like, with any culture, like, when you combine all of our cultures together, no matter, I've got a 30% Scottish in me, so I know I've got a big cultural background to learn there.
I've been
Same with
looking
Māori.
into, like, I've got a little bit, like, I'm half Hungarian, and I've been looking into, like, the Hungarian side because it's very folklore and things like
Yeah.
that you weren't allowed to look into when you're a witness. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, and, just start
right.
looking and start, and it will all make sense, and it all comes back to the same thing. Like, I talk about the menstrual cycle, and this is where I fell in. I ended up going to a workshop, and it was called the feminine workshop or something, and I was like, "Oh, this
Mhm.
is interesting." And that's where I learned about, yoni wands and eggs, yoni
Mhm.
eggs. And that was my first experience, like, learning about that and touching them, and they were all made out of crystals and glass.
Yeah.
And I learned about the menstrual cycle and how we're connected to Mother Earth. And then I sat there and I was like, well, what about Māori culture? Like,
Mm.
surely there's something around there, that I can get to learn. And that's how I fell into books that actually
Yep.
talk about our kuia, our ancestors that actually, view our period as sacred. But it's because of the colonials that came to New Zealand that changed it and made it dirty.
And
And
shameful,
really,
yep.
it was never dirty or shameful.
No.
And you'll
Yeah.
find that with every culture if we go
Yep,
back.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And
that's been my
so
experience. It's been amazing to actually tap into my culture again and learn things that I never heard of. Like, I just thought,
yeah.
wow,
I
never
love
knew that.
that for you, like, to be able to do that, to connect. And, while you're still young, like, you haven't reached, like, your 70s or something, and then you're like, "Oh, no, like, this was all false, and now I wanna get in touch with, like, my
Yeah,
background and my culture." So yeah, it's
Yeah,
beautiful. I love it, Moana.
thank you. And I'm just learning about this, and I'm like, wow, I've got 3 daughters, and I'm like, I was never taught about sex, or no one ever spoke to me about it. It was all very hush hush. I didn't even know, like honestly, I didn't even know what an orgasm was until I actually, after I had my first baby. Like I didn't even have an orgasm getting pregnant. Like I only had an
Yeah.
orgasm with my husband. I didn't even know what it was. I was just like, whoa, like like that experience.
Yeah.
So, and I've got 3 daughters now, so I'm like, wow. So when it comes to periods, I try to be very, very open, and try to share all of this new teachings with my girls, and we can do the same with our own children and grandchildren. Just be more open. It's okay. We don't have to have shame around that anymore. And same with my wands. Like I've got yoni wands and eggs, and my husband said to me, put them away. Like you need to hide them. And I'm like, why? I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to hide that from my children. Like I want them to ask me questions, and I want to be able to have that conversation. That it's actually okay to self-pleasure if you want to. Obviously, when I get to a certain age, like I want them to be okay with that. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
That's really
it's the
good.
way you get to fall in love with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really important for them, and they're going to be so grateful to have you as their mum to be able to do that and share that knowledge with them.
Yeah,
I know
definitely. Yeah.
And then I know that you've just recently started your podcast. You've just recently started your podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've called it the Hikoi Home, which was perfect, like timing with my baptism and then going on a hikoi of my own, back to my roots. So I called it the Hikoi Home. So I looked at it in many ways, like Hikoi Home or a walk home is just like finding your purpose or finding your sense of belonging, where you come from, like who am I, going on a journey to self-discovery, like going through the shitstorms and coming to your spiritual awakening. So it all felt right calling it the Hikoi Home. And this was an opportunity for me to be able to open my voice, because I've always struggled to speak, believe it or not. Like very, very nervous. I'm not so much now, because the more you do this, the more comfortable and easy it becomes and more natural. But it used to feel like someone was choking my throat. So I thought, this is a beautiful way to create a platform where I can speak and just be myself. And just speak my truth and not hold back, and just turn up just as me. And I've just been having fun with it and not really having an expectation as well. I just jump in there whenever I feel like it and do a podcast. Good. It's fun, and it's a great way to meet new people and grow a community of like-minded people. So if anyone wants to share their story or have a yarn with me on a podcast, I'd love to interview more people.
Definitely. I think that we can link the name in the comments or something like that. I'm sure Shane can do that. So people can find you. And then, so I guess, moving forward, what have you got on the horizon? What's your next step or goals?
Wow. Question. Yes, I've got I love experimenting. Like I've always been like that. Like I'll never stop learning. That's for sure. I always love to learn more about the feminine woman. I like to learn about history, especially around witches and who we really are. Like for me, a witch now were people like midwives and plant medicine women and poets
Yeah.
and writers and so I've been able to like look at witches in a completely new perspective. I actually want to continue with my coaching. I'm hoping to do some voluntary work with recovering from religion, so I'm looking forward to that journey and hoping to bring it to New Zealand with Michelle. There's a group of us that are wanting to create a recovering from religion group and bring it to New Zealand, so more people have the opportunity to be understood from a religious point of view, from religious trauma and emotional abuse in that respect. I'm also becoming a DJ, believe it or not, at 41 years old. I wanted just an outlet. I love music, always have, and I decided I wanted to become a DJ. So I'm just learning the ropes of how to DJ, and hope to create some workshops around ecstatic dance because embodiment is really important for women to move their bodies and men, and to just release all the blockages and trauma and freedom within our bodies. And it's all about self-expression when it comes to dancing. There's no set structure. It's just go with the flow of whatever your body feels. So DJ, ecstatic dance sounds pretty cool to me. I just want to be more present with my children. Like that's something that, now that I've been on this journey of rediscovering myself, it's time that I share all of this knowledge with my own children.
Yes.
And form a stronger bond with them, because I know that they have made a lot of sacrifice. So yes, I'm looking forward to that. And just looking forward to summer really, and maybe going to the beach.
I'll have to do a road trip and come visit you.
I love that. I'm thinking like lots of bonfires, marshmallows. So come down. Go to the beach and just chill. And do more. And I want to get more involved in growing a community and helping others. And so feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm very much available to chat.
And I guess like along those lines, like, if there's someone they're watching now who might still be in the religion or thinking about leaving or even has left, like what's like one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's questioning at the moment?
The biggest thing would be just trust yourself. Like if you're feeling something doesn't feel okay, then it probably isn't okay. So just trust yourself enough to get the clarity, to do the research. Probably the biggest tip I can offer you will save you so much time. Like I've wasted 20 years, still feeling mentally manipulated. And my biggest tip is just trust it. If you don't feel right, if it doesn't feel right for you, then it's not. And just do a little bit of research and you'll get the answers you need. 100%.
That's perfect. I agree. Do exactly what the Watchtower tells you not to do and trust in yourself.
Absolutely. Definitely. So we're all here for you. For anyone that has this opportunity to watch this, we're totally here. We understand you. And
for me, like Moana, you were one of the first people I connected with when I left, because you were there to help, and you had me on the phone crying and tears, just spilling my guts. So I can attest to just like how wonderful you are at listening and helping and guiding people. So definitely hit Moana up if you can.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and I'm loving your journey. Thank you so much. Michelle just did me a design, and I love the way you've really brought out my stretch marks and my belly. And
it's beautiful. You're beautiful.
So hopefully we can share that in the comments. Like, share it in the comments, Michelle, because I really love that. And to me, it's so special that you really accentuated that or brought that out, because that is my baby. It's like my baby's created that.
And that's you, like part of nature with your ancestry behind you and your children in front of you. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for interviewing me. That was
I feel like I'm going to cry. That was really nice.
And I think you're just so beautiful, and I keep going, Michelle. Like, you're doing so amazing, and I'm so proud of you. I love watching you. You always pop up on my news feed, and I've got my apostasy. I was like, I was actually going to wear that tonight.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I went and got my vaccination, and I wore it.
My
vaccination. Oh, there it is.
It's the beautiful Moana.
Yeah. So those are my babies. So that was the first time that I did a photography, a photo shoot, because I felt very uncomfortable showing my body in that way, and I just wanted to feel empowered, and I wanted to embrace my body just as it is, with all my stretch marks and belly.
Well, to me, you completely come across as powerful, strong, and beautiful. Like, and because I know you, I know that you're beautiful inside and out. So yeah. That's enough from me.
Thank you, and I can't wait for us to actually touch each other, like in person.
A nice big hug after all this COVID mess and ex-Jehovah's Witness. Woo!
Yeah. Beautiful, babe. Thank you so much.
Thank you for chatting with me. I hope that, everyone that was watching enjoyed your story and connected with you, and hopefully someone will reach out to you and we can go from there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching. See ya.